Have you ever spent weeks thinking about someone who barely knew your name? Not someone you actually shared a real story with, not a relationship that lasted months or years, but someone who almost became something, a conversation left unfinished, a look that could have meant more, a silence you interpreted as a promise. And the strange part is that this person, the one who never truly became real, hurt more than many people who actually stayed. You cried over them in a way you could not cry over real losses. You imagined them in scenes that never happened. You built entire conversations in your mind. You created a version of them so complete, so detailed, so perfect, that if the real person had ever come close, they probably would have disappointed you. And you know that. You knew it while you were imagining it. And still, you could not stop. If you recognize yourself in this, it is not a coincidence. And it is not weakness. It is one of the deepest marks of a melancholic mind. Today, I want to show you why this happens. Not to cure you from it, because this is not a disease, but so you can understand what this pattern reveals about the way your mind works. And why this way of feeling, even when it feels like a burden, is actually one of the rarest things there is. There is a reason this happens. And it begins in a place most people will never fully understand. The melancholic mind does not live mainly here, in the concrete world, in everyday conversations, in the things that can be touched and proven. It lives in a parallel dimension made of ideas, images, and possibilities. An inner world so rich, so detailed, so deeply inhabited, that the outside world often feels like a poorer version of what it could have been. This is not escapism. It is not immaturity. It is a different way of existing. While most people anchor their experience in what is, what happened, what was said, what can be proven, the melancholic mind anchors itself in what could be, in what almost happened, in what remained suspended somewhere between possibility and reality. And that is exactly why a love that never actually existed can take up more space than one that truly did. Because real love has limits. It has flaws. It has ordinary mornings, boring conversations, and moments when the person beside you is just a normal human being. But imagined love has no ceiling. You build it with the finest raw material available. Everything you are capable of feeling and imagining. And here is the point that very few people can see clearly. The melancholic person does not idealize because they are naive. It is not that they do not know reality. It is that they know reality and feel deeply that it could be more beautiful, more intentional, more intense, more worthy of what life has the potential to be. There is a standard inside you, not an arrogant standard, not a vain demand, but an aesthetic, almost artistic standard for how things should be lived. Like a story that deserves to be told well, with the right soundtrack, the right setting, and characters who arrive prepared for what the moment requires. And when reality does not deliver that, and it rarely does, the disappointment is not superficial. It is something deeper. A quiet kind of grief for what could have been, but was not. Other people deal with this differently. They adjust their expectations. They accept imperfection with a kind of ease that to you feels almost impossible to understand, as if they do not feel the distance between what is and what could be, but you feel it. You always have. And in a relationship, this means the real person, with their fears, their limitations, their bad days, ends up competing with a version of themselves that exists only in your mind. A version that is never late, never hurts you by accident, never disappoints you. It is a competition reality rarely wins. But there is something in this that goes beyond idealization, something that hurts in a different way, and something the melancholic person rarely knows how to name without feeling a mixture of sadness and unfairness. The melancholic person makes an effort, not occasionally, consistently, almost obsessively. They make an effort to be careful with the people they love, to honor what they promised, to be present in a way that feels meaningful, weighty, and worthy of what they feel. Because for the melancholic person, a relationship is not just a social arrangement. It is a chapter in their story, and that chapter needs to be lived with intention. The problem is that most people do not live this way, not because they are bad people, but because they simply do not carry the same inner standard. They make mistakes with a lightness that feels impossible to you. They make promises and forget them. They hurt you without realizing the size of the damage, and then they move on as if nothing was left crooked, and you are left holding the weight. The hurt does not pass quickly because to you, that mistake was not just a mistake. It was a chapter that became ugly, a scene that should never have happened, a stain on a story you were trying to write with so much care. And the hardest part to accept is not the mistake itself. It is the asymmetry. It is realizing that you were trying to build something beautiful, and the other person did not even know there was a story being told. And this is where we return to the beginning, to the love that was never real, and still left a mark that real loves often did not. Because now it makes sense, does it not? In a one-sided love that never truly happened, there is no room for asymmetry. There is no room for mistakes, disappointment, or ugly chapters. The person exists only in the dimension where you are strongest, your mind. And there, they are exactly what you need them to be. They do not make promises and forget them. They do not hurt you without noticing. They do not wake up one day as someone different from who they used to be. They remain suspended in a moment of pure possibility. And pure possibility is the material the melancholic mind knows how to work with best. That is why the grief of an almost love is so specific. So hard to explain to anyone who does not feel things the same way. It is not missing something that happened. It is missing something that could have happened. And that is a pain without clear edges. Because there are no concrete memories to process. There is no clear ending to accept. There is only an empty space where a story could have lived. And the melancholic mind does not simply know how to close that space. It keeps inhabiting it. It keeps imagining. It keeps feeling the weight of something that, technically, never existed. Not because it cannot move on, but because abandoning that space feels like betraying something that, to the melancholic mind, was completely real. And this is where I need to tell you something that maybe no one has ever said to you in these exact words. What you feel, this ability to love what does not exist even more than what did, to suffer over the almost more than the real, to carry the weight of stories that were never written. This is not a flaw in someone who cannot deal with reality. It is the mark of someone who lives with a depth most people will never reach. Your imagination is not an escape. It is a form of perception, an ability to sense the potential of things, of people, of moments, of stories, with an intensity that goes far beyond what can be seen with the naked eye. Most people see what is in front of them. You see what could be there. And that difference, which so often feels like a curse, is actually a rare form of emotional intelligence. A sensitivity that allows you to create, perceive, feel, and express things that exist on a frequency very few people can tune into. One-sided love hurts more because you invested something real in it, the best version of your imagination, the most honest part of your hope. That is not illusion. That is devotion. And if reality has not yet found a way to rise to the level of what you are capable of feeling, that says much more about the limits of reality than it does about you. The melancholic mind does not need to be cured of its depth. It needs to learn to recognize that depth for what it has always been. A rare gift. In an age that barely knows what to do with rare things.